it's a Tuesday. Guess who's back in town? Yeah, that'd be me. On the rundown today, a lot of Democrats say they're not going to attend the inauguration because Donald Trump is not a legitimate president. Well, that's a nice way to uphold the institutions of democracy, the things that they run their mouths about so often. We'll talk about that. The moving vans are moving from the White House to Barack Obama's new residence. We'll talk about that. Cartels and smugglers are exploiting the border wall in an attempt to get drugs and people across the border before Donald Trump takes the oath of office here in just 4 days. That, plus we'll have John Lott on the program, Byron Henry, Kall, and Tezlyn Figaro. Don't miss her. It's a big show all put together just for you. If you don't mind, have a cup of coffee. Get ready, because we're going to do this. It's called The Steve Gruber Show.
This is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is The Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it all.
Stop. Yeah, stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me, gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy!
Been a long education.
Yeah, it's not cynical. It's common sense.
My homework is
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
All right, my friends, Tuesday. Glad to be back here. Gone for a day. Had some things to tidy up with. Went very well. I'm glad that we got that out of the way. And I'm back here with you on the week that Donald Trump becomes the 45th president of the United States. If you'd like to join the conversation, 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966. John Lewis getting a lot of conversation time right now. John Lewis, the Georgia member of Congress, former member of the civil rights, just an activist in the civil rights movement, being called an icon now, and really wasn't really an icon of the civil rights movement. He was a guy he was an activist. He was out there. He was involved. He wasn't walking side by side with Martin Luther King that I've ever seen. Maybe I've missed it, and if I have, I'm sure you could share it with me and bring me up to speed. But he says he's boycotting the inauguration of Donald Trump, and that's okay. He boycotted the inauguration of George W. Bush as well. You see, this guy is a guy who's just a malcontent, I suppose. He just wants to create trouble. And so, excuse me, he's been there before, and he's there now. Try to stir up trouble, but it doesn't matter. He can sit it out. It's okay. It won't open the door any easier for him when he wants to work with Donald Trump on things that matter to him in the future. Let's go to Matt in Okemos standing by real quick, and then we're going to get on to the rest of the program. Matt, roll us along.
Well, they're upset that the Trump card beat the race card, and they're doubling down on that race card.
What do you mean by that?
You know what I mean? Well, the Trump card, Donald Trump came in and bulldozed right through the racism, which most Republicans kowtow to, and then fire anybody that gets involved with that, which he didn't do with Lewandowski. He didn't beg to them.
Well, there you go.
He just went right through them.
Well, I appreciate that. He plowed through a lot of people, Matt, and I appreciate you checking in. In fact, he met with Martin Luther King III yesterday, the federal holiday honoring the man, his father, killed in 1968. He said he had a very constructive meeting with President-elect Donald Trump. In fact, we've got a little bit of sound from him. Martin Luther King Jr. III talking to the media after his meeting with President-elect Donald Trump at Trump Tower. Clip 5. Go.
Well, certainly he said that he is going to represent Americans. He said that over and over again. And I think that we will continue to evaluate that. I think that the nation supports. I believe that that's his intent. But I think also we have to consistently engage with pressure, public pressure. It doesn't happen automatically. My father and his team understood that, did that. And I think that Americans are prepared to do that.
So he's going to give Donald Trump a fair shot at this, that it was a constructive meeting. So Donald Trump wants to represent everybody. Says he believes that. So there you go. Meanwhile, Trump said that one of the key parts of the House Republicans' corporate tax plan that would tax imports and exempt exports was too complicated. Anytime I hear border adjustment, I just don't love it, he said to the Wall Street Journal, because usually it means we're going to get adjusted into a bad deal. Historically, that's what happens, he says. The border adjustment tax plan is one of the most controversial parts of the House Republicans' tax plan. The measure is reportedly part of a broader plan to encourage companies to locate jobs and production in the U.S. Now, if you take out the border adjustment, you have to really think about an entirely different form and reform, said Kyle Pomerlew. He's the director of the federal projects at the Tax Foundation. It's a conservative leading group in Washington. Foreign companies that import goods, you see, to the U.S. would have to pay the tax, increasing the cost of the imports. Exporters love the idea, but importers, including big retailers and consumer electronics firms, say it could lead to steep price increases on consumer goods like, well, shirts and pants and TVs and so forth. The lobbying has already begun. Koch Industries said last month, the Koch brothers, you know who they are, obviously, said just last month that the measure could be devastating for the economy. The Journal, citing independent analyses, said the tax plan would lead the dollar to appreciate, which would offset the cost for retailers. Now, under current law, the United States taxes the profits of U.S.-based companies, even if the money is made overseas. And here's been part of the problem, you see. A lot of those profits have stayed overseas. Taxes on foreign incomes are deferred until a company either reinvests the profits in the U.S. or distributes that money to shareholders, you see. And that's the money, it's several $1 trillion that Donald Trump has talked about that he says needs to come home and go to work in America. And I'm going to tell you right now, he will find a plan for that to happen. He will find a plan that will bring home that trillions of dollars. Critics say the system encourages corporations to invest profits overseas, which it does, and more dramatically shifts operations and jobs abroad to avoid U.S. taxes, which it does. But Ford and General Motors and U.S. Steel and others have now recognized, Apple's on that list as well, along with a whole host of other companies, has now recognized that Donald Trump is likely to change that, and this Congress is likely to go along with him to change that, which is why these companies now are investing in the United States, which is why you're seeing all of these headlines in the last few weeks about major investment in plants, major rollouts of investment, and the number of jobs that it'll likely create over the next few years, because this money is being teed up. It's in the on-deck circle, if you will. This money to come back, trillions of dollars, is in the on-deck circle and ready to come home to you, to me, to America, so that America can prosper and thrive. And that's the whole point of what he's got planned right here. All right, we're going to take a quick break here. The hotline number is 888-900-9966. If you want to find out more, or you are having trouble finding this program when you travel, no problem. SteveGruber.com. Find it on your mobile device, your smartphone. SteveGruber.com. You can click the Listen Live button. Take us with you wherever you go. You can find us on Facebook, The Steve Gruber Show. Follow us on Twitter, @Steve Gruber Show. That's the handle. All of these resources, we do it just for you every day. This is The Steve Gruber Show.
Delivering Michigan common sense with a big dose of truth and honesty.
I was justified when I was 5, raising Cain, I spit in your eye. Times are changing, now the poor get fat, but the thief is gonna catch you when the bitch gets back.
18 after on a Tuesday, it's the Steve Gruber Show. Glad you got to tune in today. Just 4 days now until the impossible happens. Can never happen, would never happen, can't be the nominee, can't be president, can't beat anybody. He's just a flash in the pan. He's not serious. Donald Trump will never, ever be president. Well, not until Friday. Let's see here. We'll get back to that in a second. All right, so a lot of you know that I spend time in northern Michigan, a fair amount of it. And there's just this horrible story out of Charlevoix County that I noticed yesterday, and I just cared to share it with you if you missed it. But a 20-year-old woman from Grosse Pointe Park killed on Sunday when she was sledding on a closed ski hill of the Boyne Mountain Resort. Sledding not allowed, by the way, on the ski runs at all, but she and others snuck in there after hours. She was apparently traveling at a very high rate of speed, which if you've ever sledded or gone sledding on those hills up there, which I have legally, man, you can get smoking fast because they're big hills and they're, well used. And so they're polished, if you will. Anyhow, she either fell off her saucer or slammed into, or just lost her moment. Anyhow, she carried into a building. She crashed into a building and she died, according to Charlevoix County Sheriff Chuck Vondra. One was staying with family and friends at a private condo at the resort. She and friends decided to take sleds down the ski run, said Vondra. Others also went down the hill on sleds but were not hurt. Her friends called 911. The victim carried to an area known as the Civic Center, where resort staff and rescuers treated her. She was taken to a nearby hospital where, unfortunately, she died. Terrible accident, says Vondra. Ed Grice, Boyne Mountain president and general manager, said, "It's a terribly tragic event that our team is keeping this young woman and her family and friends in our hearts. It's just, this young people went out to have some fun. And, she got going sledding too fast, and there are no brakes, all right? So that's what happened with that. Let's see here. TV ratings for the NFL playoffs. For the first time this year, the playoffs really got the numbers. The robust postseason NFL bears no resemblance to the dampened leagues seen at the top of the season. Sunday's playoff games were huge for Fox and NBC, with Fox's earlier showing on track to be the biggest U.S. telecast since the Super Bowl, when the Green Bay Packers put an end to the Dallas Cowboys' NFC Championship ambitions in a stunning 11th-hour victory. The audiences stuck around for it. An average of 48.5 million viewers watched that game, far and away the most watched telecast in over a year, and by far the most watched NFL playoff tilt of all time. Yeah. And the Pack is back, and there they go. All right, back to things that affect you and I more directly, potentially, than football's fun, and it was a heck of a football game. That pass down the sidelines, unbelievable. And then the kick, anyhow, the Packers win. Mexican drug cartels and human traffickers cashing in ahead of Donald Trump's inauguration by exploiting anxiety over his vow to build a border wall and crack down on illegal immigration, fueling the latest surge across the U.S.-Mexico line, according to local law enforcement officials on the scene down there. See, this is what happens when you get the news from the front lines and don't rely on Lester Holt or someone like that. The president-elect reiterated his pledge at a press conference Wednesday to build a wall. This is last Wednesday, of course, which he claims will curb illegal immigration, reduce gun violence, and stop drugs from being smuggled into the country. For now, however, the Obama administration's leniency, combined with concerns about Trump's crackdown, is believed to contribute to this big push. This big push. And I should make a point here. Alex just pointed this out. It's not Trump's law. It's United States law. And I will say this again. There is nothing wrong with the United States immigration system. We don't need an immigration overhaul in America. I haven't said this for a while, but let me reiterate things that I've said in the past. We don't need an overhaul of immigration law in America. What we need is enforcement of the laws that already exist. When people arrived at Ellis Island, they were questioned. They were given health exams. If their health was in question, they were quarantined and sent to this side over here. You were checked. You get in this line, this line, this line. Where are you from? Do you have papers? Do you not have papers? And they were processed accordingly, legally, according to the law. So my question then becomes, why are we not doing that now? We'll take your phone calls at 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966, the hotline number to call. But you have this big surge now because basically what we're being told and what you're being told is that the laws are not being enforced. And then after Friday, they probably will in short order be enforced. And those that are here that are illegally here, that have criminal records, will be the first to be shown to the door and sent out of the country because things are going to change. But those cartels and smugglers, smuggling drugs and human trafficking and everything else. A lot of human trafficking at the southern border. Michigan, by the way, a big human trafficking state, if you didn't know. So if we can crack down on what's happening there, maybe we can reduce the exploitation of children closer to home. And if that's not a worthwhile endeavor, I don't know what is. But if we could please reduce the exploitation of children, we would be going in the right direction, don't you think? There's enough of that going on in this world. It's time to push back, and it's time to enforce the laws we already have in place, and it's time to, well, make America America again. And you do that with sovereign borders and culture and language. Fair enough? Again, the phone number, 888-900-9966. This hour of the program is brought to you by DTE Energy, providing safe, reliable natural gas to businesses across Michigan. DTE Energy, know your own power. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to open the phone lines for you here early today. If you'd like to get on board, 888-900-9966 for the next few minutes. 888-900-9966. What would you like to have Donald Trump do first? What is the first thing you'd like to hear that he does when he becomes president of the United States on Friday? Give me a call.
Delivering Michigan common sense with a big dose of truth and honesty.
Every day I get in the queue to get on the bus that takes me to you. I'm so nervous.
All right, welcome to it. Tuesday. Nickname of my vehicle in high school, the Magic Bus, an old Ford van. Yeah, we were Who fans back then. Can you imagine? Anyhow, did you see this video? You've got to see that. I'm going to put this up on the Facebook page. And before I get to your calls, I'm going to take your calls here in a second. 888-900-9966. What do you want Donald Trump to do first? The number one thing you want Donald Trump to do. What would make America great? What do you want to hear that he does first? And do you think it'll make America great again, as he says? Okay, so this video I'm putting up on the Facebook page is of this alligator that needs to be at Weight Watchers. This massive alligator that can... his belly's almost dragging on the ground. I've never seen anything like it. I've seen some big gators up close and in person in some different places, but this is at the Circle B Nature Reserve in Polk County. They caught this creature on camera a couple of times. It's like a cow. It's the biggest thing you've ever seen. You got to see it. I'm going to put up the Steve Gruber Show Facebook page for your viewing pleasure. It's the giant alligator. By the way, the state record's 14 feet 3.5 inches with a weight of 1,043 pounds. This animal, I can assure you, is bigger on both measures, without question. Our next guest, nicer than an alligator, calling on the hotline, Steve, checking in from Lansing, Michigan. Steve, welcome to the program.
Little footnote, the rain that's falling out of the sky is rain, but when it hits the ground, it's causing freeze spots, and it's ugly. Just like y'all would like to know.
Oh, it's lousy out there. I should have mentioned that. You're right. It's a lot of ice patches across the state. Go on.
I want to see him restart the space program. I want to see him improve the food conditions in this country, as far as when you look at Europe and how they've tightened things up with the things that they put in that aren't good for you. Additives, that is, I want to see food improved, and I want to see the space program restarted.
Now hold that thought right there, because I'm going to tell you something. I sat at home with Ivy and the kids here a few days ago, I guess last weekend maybe. Anyhow, Apollo 13 was on, and I sat there and I watched Apollo 13, of course, where they have all these things go wrong, and it's a very well done movie with Tom Hanks, of course, but they're up there. They have no chance of returning home. They know that. And yet the Americans all get together. They scatter. They spread out. They all create. Several small miracles came together to create a big miracle. And I thought, that's what America's about. America does great things. That's what it inspired me. And I agree with you about the space program. It used to be when I was a kid, you'd watch a Saturn V rocket go up. And, man, that was an impressive thing to watch. And then the space shuttle came along, and that was incredible. And it was something where you could look at the sky and say, my God, America does great things and big things and things that make the whole world go, my God, look at America. I don't think we do those things anymore, Steve. I think that's kind of what you're driving at.
Absolutely. Amen.
And that's what we want around here. Steve-O, thanks for checking in. The hotline number, 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966. Now, the space program's apparently, underway with Barack Obama. Says he wants to go to Mars and so forth, right? That's what he says. Right now, the only place he is moving is out of the White House. Moving van there. And the moving van now spotted outside the Obama family home in Washington, D.C., where he intends to stay, by the way, which is unprecedented. According to Bruce Leshan, a WUSA reporter, he tweeted a picture that shows a moving van outside the Obama's new home in the residential neighborhood of Colorama. The picture also shows, I guess that's how you say Colorama, shows boxes on the street and so forth. The 8-bedroom home, 8,200 square feet, and has 9.5 bathrooms. Well, you need options. I mean, you need options, You got to break the place in. You got to run the circuit. 9.5 bathrooms, according to Town and Country, which published pictures of the home's interior. And that way you never get bored. You can have different magazines in each room. Bathroom, that is. Always something new to read, new book to work on. The images taken before the home sold in 2014 show that the house features a living room fireplace, spacious backyard, 2-car garage, not that they will ever drive, a 6-burner Wolf stove, wet bar, Sub-Zero fridge, and all that stuff, the high-end, very high-end stuff, which is, listen, you're the President of the United States. Like him or hate him, you deserve to live however the post-presidents are allowed to live. In a 60 Minutes interview that aired Sunday, his last appearance on network TV, at least at this point in time. President Obama, last time he'll appear on network television as the president, apparently. President Obama said his family will be happy to be out of the White House. I mean, the girls, obviously, they're now of an age in which the constraints of Secret Service and bubbles and all that stuff have gotten pretty old. Michelle never fully took to the scrutiny. I mean, she's thrived as a first lady, but it's not her preference, said the president. Did you see that there was a letter written from Jenna and Barbara Bush that I thought was terrific to the Obama girls about life after the White House. It was featured in Time magazine a few days ago. I think I saw that after I last spoke with you. But what I found refreshing about the letter is that there is life beyond politics. And it's a very classy letter that I'm going to put up also on the Steve Gruber Show Facebook page for you to read. And it's written to Malia and Sasha from Jenna and Barbara. And they talk about 8 years in the White House. 8 years ago on a cold November, I'll give you a sample. On a cold November day, we greeted you on the steps of the White House. We saw both the light and wariness in your eyes as you gazed at your new home. We left our jobs in Baltimore and New York early and traveled to Washington to show you around, to show you the Lincoln bedroom and the bedrooms that were once ours, to introduce you to all the people, the florists, the groundskeepers, and the butlers, who dedicate themselves to making this historic house a home. The four of us wandered the majestic halls of the house you had no choice but to move into. When you slid down the banister of the solarium, just as we had done 8 years as 8-year-olds, and again as 20-year-olds chasing our youth, your joy and laughter was contagious. And this letter goes on, and what I find spectacular about this letter is that there is a place beyond politics in America today where people can be just good, decent human beings to others. And I mean that. I think we need more of that. Despite the vitriol, despite the folks that are going to boycott the inauguration and protest and scream and holler and carry on, there's still a place in this nation of ours for us to come together with common ground and common decency and have conversations. Conversations, not screaming matches. Conversations of real substance with real results and real possibilities. I still believe that, and I always will, because I believe that's truly a part of America. Now, to the victors go the spoils, and so shall Donald Trump lead for the next 4 years. And those that didn't end up on the winning side should allow him to conduct his job and give him a chance with some grace and some humility. That's the way it ought to begin. We haven't seen that yet. I hope that it'll become toned down in the weeks and months ahead. I hope that Donald Trump enjoys many successes as president. I hope his vision for the economy boosts this country, and that we can leave the world a better place with less war and more prosperity. That's what I hope for, and that's what I'll be supporting. What are your thoughts? It's the Steve Gruber Show.
Michigan, born and raised with Midwestern values and Michigan common sense.
It's my life, it's now or never. I ain't gonna live forever. I just wanna live
I'm going to show you this. Bon Jovi won't be playing at the inauguration. Oh, that's fine. I'm going to take pictures. We're going to be doing live Facebook hits. We're going to be doing. I don't even know how that works yet, but and if Ivy were here, she'd explain it. I've seen it. I understand it. Obviously, I've seen different rallies, political rallies, live on Facebook. We're going to do that from Washington at different times, be it from the inauguration or from some of the balls afterwards, so that we can share part of that experience with you. And then, of course, next Monday, I'll give you a complete recap of the experience and who we saw and how it all went and how spectacular the women that are going with me. That's right, women. I couldn't be more blessed than to have two gorgeous women escorting me to the ball. So very lucky for me, and I'll have that for you, and we'll have live Facebook at different times. Again, stay with it at the Steve Gruber Show Facebook page. The Steve Gruber Show Facebook page. We're going to figure that out. Somebody's explaining it to me. If you'd like to get involved with the conversation now, it's 888-900-9966. You know who's been out there running around a lot lately thinking, gosh, if only I had run for president, I'd be president potentially, as Joe Biden. You may have noticed that. Joe Biden out there running around all over the place, doing interviews, talking to folks, making his mark. On a last foreign trip before leaving office, Biden met with Ukraine's president and called on Donald Trump and his administration to retain Ukraine-related sanctions against Russia. Okay, apparently Joe Biden wants to make sure that the sanctions against Russia remain tough. It's clip 6, in fact. Let's listen to Joe Biden talk about this. Clip 6, Joe Biden, go.
Together with our EU and G7 partners, we made it clear that sanctions should remain in place until Russia fully, I emphasize fully, implements its commitments under the Minsk agreement. And that the Crimea-related sanctions against Russia must remain in place until Russia returns full control to the people of Ukraine.
All right, thank you for that. That's good enough. You get it. He wants to retain control there. Closer to home, the discussion over guns has really changed over the last couple of years because it's gone from restricting rights to constitutional carry in a lot of places. In fact, as many as 17 states could allow people to carry a concealed handgun without a permit at all. Dr. John Lott here, the president of the Crime Prevention Research Center, talk a bit about it for a moment. Doctor, welcome back to the program.
Well, great to talk to you.
There really has been an attitude change in this country, from my perspective. Even after Donald Trump was elected on Black Friday, there was a record number of firearm background checks done, as a record number of gun sales. So gun sales continue to be very strong, and many states now considering this constitutional carry. Real quickly, explain that to our listeners.
Well, constitutional carry is that people would no longer need to go and get a permit to be able to go and carry concealed. If you're able to legally own a gun, then you're able to legally carry it. So, if a criminal decides that they're going to carry concealed and they get caught, if they commit a crime like that, then they're going to be facing punishment, not only for whatever crime they got caught doing, but also for illegally carrying.
Let me jump in there, because I think part of the problem we face in America today is we don't, apply the gun laws we already have strongly enough. When people get caught with a gun, just like you said, if you're carrying a gun illegally, you need to face the consequences. And I think too often law enforcement and others let people off a little bit too easy. Am I wrong about that?
Well, I think there's this perception that people aren't getting punished for those things, but I'm not sure that that's really right. I mean, the big type of firearms violation, which people think they're not being punished for, is people supposedly illegally buying a gun. But the problem is that there's not that gap there. The reason why people think that there's this gap is that they think that, there's been several million people that have legally tried to buy guns and just weren't punished. In fact, that's not what was happening. When people have been supposedly caught trying to illegally buy guns when they were forbidden from doing so, what was happening is that they just it was a mistake on the part of the law. You have we think we're having people illegally buy guns, but it's really just somebody who has a name similar to the types of people that we want to have stopped, and they're not punishing them because they're not really people violating the law. It's just that we have somebody who had a name similar to somebody who shouldn't have trying to buy it.
So if somebody, let's go back to constitutional carry, if somebody's carrying a gun and the police see somebody carrying a gun because for whatever reason they notice it, are they able to ask somebody about that? Are you carrying that gun legally? I mean, what is a police officer's, what are they allowed to legally do? Can they do anything? Should they do anything?
Well, I mean, it depends on the state. There are some states that actually have penalties for the officers if they go and stop somebody when they shouldn't be. It turns out the person legally had the right to do so. I'm not completely thrilled by constitutional carry myself. I think one big advantage that you have of having the requirement that somebody have to have a permit to be able to carry is that we can go and show how incredibly law-abiding concealed carry permit holders are. If you don't have those licenses, then you're not going to know the rate that people who are carried legally have caused problems.
So last thought here. We got about 10 seconds here, but you don't have a concern whatsoever. People need to get a license to carry a gun. Doesn't bother you at all.
No, I mean, the thing we should worry about are the fees that they have to pay and also other costs like the training requirements.
If
you keep those down, I don't think it's a problem.
Dr. John Lott, you can read more at crimeresearch.org, the president of the Crime Prevention Research Center. Dr. John Lott, thank you as always.
Great.
This is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it off.
Stop. Yeah, stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me, gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy!
Been a long education.
Yeah, it's not cynical. It's common sense.
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
All right, it is Tuesday here in the program. Glad to have you along for the ride. The phone number, if you'd like to join in today, is 888-900-9966. You can check out more at stevegruber.com, where you can listen live on your device. You can also follow me on Twitter at Steve Gruber Show. Check it out on Facebook, The Steve Gruber Show. You'll see there's a pattern here. It all kind of ties together. See how that works? We're working for you. All right, so as you know, we're headed for the inauguration this week. Invited to be there, which I am, I can't say enough about. I appreciate the opportunity to be part of American history. I'm glad that we can be part of American history, but we'll be there with a whole lot of other folks. That's because the security grid for the inauguration means there will be tens of thousands of police and military personnel active. About 16,500, I think, is the published number. The real number could actually be higher. But a lot of those security measures already visible in the form of jersey barriers placed on the streets near places like Lafayette Square. Parking restrictions begin tomorrow. Streets will start closing altogether on Thursday. By the end of the week, the nation's capital will have transformed into a virtual fortress of roadblocks, fences, and armed police. Streets will be barricaded with trucks filled with sand. 5 metro stations will close Friday. Crossing Pennsylvania Avenue will be next to impossible. The peaceful transfer of power is made possible by overlaying a tight security grid using 28,000 security officials over 100 square blocks of prime downtown real estate. From the White House to the Capitol and beyond, with a price tag of tens of millions of dollars. As many as 1 million people expected to turn out to watch Donald Trump become president. Security officials said there are 63 demonstration groups, pro and con, expected on Friday, and an additional 36 on other days. Those include groups with permits and others who have signaled participation through social media without permits. To accomplish having a tranquil event amid worries of terrorist attacks and threats by some groups to disrupt the celebration requires bringing in 3,000 police officers from across the nation, at least 5,000 members of the National Guard, bolstering the already large law enforcement footprint imposed on everyday Washington life. The numbers this year are the same as in years past. We are constantly adapting, evolving, and enhancing our protective methodology to protect against emerging threats, said Brian Ebert, the Secret Service special agent in charge of the Washington field office. We are monitoring our adversaries, paying close attention to their trends and their tactics. I can tell you this, from being in Cleveland during the Republican National Convention this past July, these folks are professionals. They're serious. They tolerate nothing. They tolerate nothing. And in fact, a couple of different times we were standing there, and there were some protesters, and there's some minor little scuffle. All of a sudden, at one point, about 300 to 400 police officers, fully armed, came flying by in a swarm on bicycles, because that was an easy way for them to move. Swarming, because that way they could move at a better rate and get around easier than any motor vehicle. On bicycles, they swarmed, and trust me, that deal was neutralized in 5 seconds. I expect to see more of the same this week in D.C. It's going to be an event where protesters turn out. It's going to be an event where supporters turn out. One of the big things I saw on social media, Bikers for Trump, calling on all motorcyclists, Harley owners, and so forth to gather to show their support, to be unofficial security, if you will, for Donald Trump. You know, for the most part, security experts said police, they will do what they always have done for such events. Snipers on rooftops, boat restrictions in the Potomac, manhole covers will be welded shut, light poles removed, trash cans and mailboxes hauled away, multi-level perimeters established along the parade route and viewing areas at the Capitol building with metal detectors and bag checks. The list of prohibited items is long and includes things that one might expect. Ammunition, weapons, and explosives are not allowed. I know you're shocked. But also here are things you might not think about that are not allowed. Balloons. Balloons not allowed. Selfie sticks. Not allowed. Supports for placards. Not allowed. Coolers for beverages. Not allowed. Bring a little bit of patience, because there are a lot of checkpoints and a lot of people, if you intend to go, don't be in a hurry to be anywhere in D.C. This week. Then, of course, you've got the march on Saturday, where a few more people are supposed to attend. We'll see how many turn out for that. They're say 1 million people are going to turn out for that, basically an anti-Trump rally. We'll see what that turns out to be. Crowds expected to be smaller this time around than the 2 million that turned out for President Obama's inauguration in 2009, but on par with his second swearing in 2013. But more protesters are anticipated this year after the polarizing campaign. We do know that. One group, this group called Disrupt J20, this is the one endorsed and supported by Michael Moore, your favorite, your boy Michael, has plans for massive resistance, it says, with rallies and marches. The group plans a permitted family-friendly gathering as well as what it calls unpermitted anti-capitalist marches. Right, because we want to be anti-capitalist, the things that bring you your very The very iPhone you use to demonstrate against capitalism comes from the largest company in the world, you moron. These people are so dumb, you couldn't, it's bizarre. I'm going to protest capitalism on my iPhone. That'll show them. I'm going to use my MacBook Pro and tell them that how awful they are on social media, on Facebook, the second biggest company in the world. Thank you for your intelligence. Now move along. We have something for you, Johnny. No. Take your medication. You'll be okay. You'll be just fine. But more protesters anticipated than before. We'll see what happens. And of course, like I said, I'll be giving you a complete rundown on the event. But for the most part, here's what I think about the protesters. Let's put that where it belongs. Okay. Where was I? Oh, yes. The Clinton Global Initiative is laying off employees. Shocked to hear that, aren't you? And to think that they thought they'd be hiring people at this point, but the Clinton Global Initiative laying people off. Apparently, the Clintons aren't nearly as popular anymore, and money's not flowing in like it once was. Now, why do you think that is? Why in the world is that? It's a decision announced last week. 22 additional employees being laid off from the Clinton Global Initiative, known for its annual glitzy gathering of high-powered leaders and celebrities. That'll also be dwindling massively. The layoffs tied to the decision to shutter CGI. That was originally announced in August when former President Bill Clinton thought that his wife Hillary was going to be president. Well, she's not. She's not, and, well, now the donations are falling off a cliff, in fact. The amount of money coming into CGI is dropping dramatically. In fact, it's drying up nearly completely. So the Clinton Global Initiative, well, it won't be around much longer. It's 14 after. You're listening to the Steve Gruber Show on a Tuesday. I'll be right back.
Taking a closer look at the stories that affect you most with a big dose of common sense.
All right, it is, 18 after. Be very careful out there all across the state today. Good Lord, it's rain and at that freezing mark. Getting calls from all over Michigan today. Slipping sliding. Schools are closed all over as well. So be careful. This out of the program brought to you by DTE Energy, providing safe, reliable natural gas to businesses across Michigan. DTE Energy. Know your own power. My next guest, Byron Henry, attorney and constitutional scholar. Byron, welcome back to the program.
Great to be with you, Steve.
Well, we're here to touch that third rail because I consider the third rail of politics to be, well, abortion oftentimes and not entitlement programs. But Texas officials back in federal court over abortion-related policy, this time to defend efforts to remove Planned Parenthood from Medicaid. Bring us up to speed, Byron. What's going on?
Well, Texas actually took the first step to defund Planned Parenthood last year, but unlike a lot of states, it just abruptly cut funding in the wake of those videos that seem to show Planned Parenthood engaged in selling baby parts and fetal tissue. Texas played the long game and just followed the administrative procedure of sending them notices and conducting investigations as they would with any other medical provider that they were considering removing from the Medicaid provider list. And, in fact, they sent the 30-day notice just last month. I believe it was on December 30th or 31st. They sent the 30-day notice that they would know that Planned Parenthood would no longer be a provider. Now, Planned Parenthood had filed a lawsuit last year when Texas first gave the notice, but there's been no hearings on it because Texas hadn't sent the 30-day notice for cancellation of funding. Texas has sent that at the end of 2016. Funding was supposed to be cut as of January 20th, so the court here in Texas set a 3-day hearing starting this morning on Texas' decision to defund Planned Parenthood and Planned Parenthood's argument that it's illegal or unconstitutional for Texas to do so. So that hearing will take place over the next 3 days.
Let me jump right in there, Byron, because, I can understand there's a disagreement about whether it should or shouldn't, but unconstitutional, I don't remember reading Planned Parenthood in the Constitution of the United States of America, and so I bring that, and I know I'm being a little bit tongue-in-cheek there, but my point being is, how often do we have to hear it's unconstitutional? If you do something I don't like, it must be unconstitutional. I think that's a bit overused, time-worn. I mean, how could it be unconstitutional to not fund this organization?
Come on, Steve. Didn't you know that from the left's perspective, everything they want to do is in the Constitution.
Well, I've heard that along the way. But let me ask you this. Let me take the devil's advocate point on this as well. You're a low-income individual. You want an abortion. Planned Parenthood goes away, and it's no longer available. Is that appropriate?
Well, there's an argument that it would deprive a lot of low-income people of necessary health care. The problem here is Texas is actually taking the lead in establishing what's called community health centers for low-income individuals to receive all types of health care. Of course, they don't provide abortions, but they provide all sorts of health care. There's actually over 735 community health centers in Texas. There's 38 branches of Planned Parenthood. So the state's argument is that there's plenty of health care available across the state for low-income individuals, and they won't miss Planned Parenthood unless, of course, they need an abortion.
And I'm going to play devil's advocate to that point as well. If you want an abortion and you're in the state of Texas, and let's say the state of Texas wins here and defunds Planned Parenthood, and pushes them to the side altogether, wouldn't that, in effect, outlaw abortion, and wouldn't that, in effect, be a failure of equal treatment under the law?
No, because Planned Parenthood could still perform abortions, and, of course, under federal and state law.
Not if they're out of business. Illegal. No, my point being, Byron, if they're out of business, if they're not funded anymore, and they fail to exist in certain places, they can't perform anything if they don't have a facility. Go on.
Well, it's true if they don't have a facility. The problem is that federal funds or state funds can't go to the performance of abortions anyway. So low-income people have to pay for their abortion. So if Planned Parenthood can't survive on the services it provides without federal or state funding, then obviously that would be a problem for them. But the real key to this, Steve, is the fact that Planned Parenthood has had a Democratic administration in Washington protecting it over the last 8 years, while Republicans have been trying to defund it. And now the states such as Texas, Iowa, Kansas, other states have a partner at the federal level. In fact...
All right, now hold on. I need to ask you a question here, because this begs a question. Okay, so for the last 8 years, Planned Parenthood has had a partner in the administration, as you said. What was going on during the 8 years of the George W. Bush administration? Why was Planned Parenthood thriving then? Didn't they have an opponent in the White House then? What is the difference?
Well, they did. Of course, it wasn't a priority. Congress hadn't moved to defund Planned Parenthood, and of course, there was a shared control of the Senate for many of those years. And I can't tell you why the Republicans didn't make it a priority back in the George Bush era, but Republicans have since made it a priority at the state and the federal level. The problem is, of course, there's been a Democratic president, but now that there's not only a Republican Congress, but a Republican president, Speaker Ryan has said, forget what the states are doing here, that he intends to use reconciliation to defund Planned Parenthood at the federal level.
Right, but what I guess I'm saying is looking at looking back over time, then Planned Parenthood has had a friend close enough in the White House for 24 years now.
Well, certainly close enough to keep them in business, that's for sure. And the issue here is now that one of the arguments Planned Parenthood makes is that there's a federal law, not the Constitution. And another argument they make is there's a federal law which protects the patient's choice to providers, which includes Planned Parenthood, and that's going to be one of their key arguments, which in an attempt to prohibit Texas from cutting their funding. The issue there is, of course, that federal law is in jeopardy, as I just mentioned with Speaker Ryan and President-elect Trump coming into office. So they may not have that protection or that shield at the federal level, allowing them to continue to operate. And so, if Texas wins its argument that Planned Parenthood has violated neutral, reasonable medical provider regulations with the way they operate their business, they can cut funding regardless.
And that hearing starts today, then. It's a 3-day hearing. You said it starts today. Byron Henry on the line with us. So we'll need to have you come back and give us an update as to how this proceeds. I'll give you 15 seconds for the last word.
Well, I would just simply say the key to the hearing and key to this whole argument is going to be whether or not Texas can make its case that Planned Parenthood has somehow violated a neutral set of principles with respect to medical care providers. If it has, they'll no longer have funding. We'll find out in 3 days.
Byron Henry, always a great deal of information, great conversation. Thank you, my friend.
My pleasure.
The Steve Gruber Show will be back right after this.
Michigan, born and raised with Midwestern values and Michigan common sense.
Darling, you got to let me know. Should I stay or should I go?
33 after on this Tuesday.
If you say that
Let's jump right to the hotline. I got Ron checking in from Rockford today. Ron, welcome to the program. What's on your mind?
Yeah, about Planned Parenthood. Everyone's going with the false narrative that they're being defunded or they're going to go out of business if they don't get federal funds. What did they do before they had federal funds? They can raise money like any other charity or business, and if people are pro-abortion, they can donate to them. I don't see why the Fed has to even be involved. So why do we assume that the Fed has to be sending our tax dollars to Planned Parenthood?
I think that's the question I was kind of driving at, Ron, and I think you've underscored it nicely. Good phone call. I appreciate that. And it's a fair question. Why does the federal government need to fund this organization at all? There are plenty of other health organizations out there. I think Ron framed the argument very, very well. Thank you for the call. John checking in now in Portage. John, what are your thoughts today?
Good morning, Steve. You're absolutely correct. There's nothing constitutional about medicine. Medicine is a consumer product, okay? It is not mentioned in the Constitution. An attorney, when the government is going to take away your liberty, is a constitutional right, but medicine is not. So it's a matter of legislative policy. Now, they might have to have a hearing because some provision in federal law, not the U.S. Constitution, but some provision, as a matter of federal policy, provides that they have to do certain things. But actually, all things regarding medicine should belong to the state, and the federal government needs to get out of it. So I'm a little disagreement with my leader, Trump, who wants to be talking about everybody will have free medicine.
Well, John, hold on, John. Right. And I'm going to answer that question. I'm going to move on. It is a matter of legislative policy, and if the nation decides that it wants to have some sort of base level of health care, as first proposed by Teddy Roosevelt back 100 years ago or more, then that's what we decide. But you're right, it's not a constitutional matter. It's a legislative matter, but I appreciate your input, John. We'll continue to monitor the conversation, of course, and see where it leads us. The conversation next leads us to Jenny Beth Martin, Tea Party Patriots president and co-founder. Jenny, welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Just another one of those conversations you were just listening to as we head into the Trump presidency at the end of this week. I guess my question to you as a Tea Party Patriot, which you believe in a nation of personal freedom and where all Americans are treated equally and treating the ability to pursue the American dream equally, and that's what it says in your vision statement, if you will. What did Tea Party Patriots hope for a Trump presidency? What are you looking for? What do you hope to and expect to see?
Well, there are four things that we're hoping to see in the very near future. Of course, the repeal of Obamacare. We've stood against that law even being passed, and we are looking forward to seeing it repealed and repealed fully.
Let me ask you. Let me hold on there. Just go back to our previous caller there just a moment ago, to John's call there from Portage. Repeal Obamacare altogether. Do you believe that there should be any health care provided by the government?
I think that the American people believe that there should be. So there's going to be some replacement for Obamacare, and I want to make sure that any kind of replacement for Obamacare is one that promotes and restores healthcare freedom, so that we are able to have a choice between ourselves and our doctors, and our relationship to get our healthcare is between us and our doctors, not with the government.
But you do think that most Americans believe some sort of baseline coverage, some sort of a safety net, if you will, should be in place for all Americans, regardless of income or no matter what their standing is, no matter what their station in life is, that they should have some sort of a coverage plan. Is that what you believe?
Well, what I think you asked, is that what most Americans believe there? And I think that most Americans, and I certainly think that having a safety net, while it's larger government, is what we've come to do in our country, and it is okay to do that. I think that charity oftentimes, and by charity I mean true charity, not government-funded charity.
I
charity
understand.
can do that oftentimes better than the government can. But when Obamacare was initially passed into law, I was going through my own personal financial crisis, and I didn't have health care, and I had health care. I did not have health insurance.
I'm with
I had to find ways to to take care of health care for my family and work out payment plans. And so I
understand, and I want to make sure we cover some other issues as well. And I think you're right. I think most Americans believe there should be some sort of baseline of coverage. There should be a safety net, not a hammock. Maybe health savings accounts, maybe competition across state lines. I think those are ideas that are fairly popular with people. People also think that their kids, if you want to call them kids, should stay on their health care until they're 26. I consider those people to be grown adults. But still, if they want the flexibility, heck, if they want to keep their kids on there until they're 65 and the insurance company allows them to pay for it, I don't care. As long as they're paying the bill, it doesn't bother me. What else is on your agenda for things you want to see Donald Trump accomplish or focus on when he becomes president?
Well, I want to see the Supreme Court vacancy filled with somebody who will uphold the Constitution and will preserve Justice Scalia's legacy. So I'm looking forward to the announcement for the next Supreme Court nominee, which I think is going to come in the very near future. Securing the border, I don't think that anyone doubts that Donald Trump is going to get the border secure, and we're going to begin enforcing our immigration laws in this country. And we haven't done that for many, many years. And then I am looking forward to what will be, I think, a longer-term fight and battle, and that is to reduce government spending, grow the economy, and get us to the point where we can have a balanced budget in this country and begin to pay down our debt.
I think getting rid of the debt is an important step, although a lot of folks tell you, people on both sides of the aisle say the debt's not that big of a crisis. I disagree with them. I think that the interest we pay on the debt is wasteful and can be dedicated to other much more useful endeavors, and our time and capital could be spent in better places. All right, so the Supreme Court nomination, important, securing the border, reducing government spending and debt. What else is on your list? I mean, that sounds like the laundry list of things that Donald Trump has discussed. Is there anything that concerns you about what Donald Trump has said or done that indicates to you he might not go a direction that you care for?
Right now, I've been focusing on the things that we agree on. We've been in a mode with the Tea Party movement where we've had to fight so hard and so long that we're looking forward to being on the offense and showing America what happens when you actually do have a constitutionally limited government that respects and promotes and expands personal and economic freedom. And there are a lot of areas where we can find alignment with Donald Trump on that. There's one other area that I think is a very big deal to our supporters, and that is getting rid of Common Core and getting education back as much as possible into the hands of local and state governments. And I think that we're in a position with Betsy DeVos to be able to begin doing that.
To finally get an outsider, I hear a lot of complaints from the left. Well, she's not in the teachers, and she's not part of the institutionalized education system of America. Thank God. Because that means there's somebody from the outside that actually can get a fresh look at it. And Jenny, I wish we had a chance to explore that a little bit more. But I think you did a fine job of outlining some of the things you're concerned about: the Supreme Court, the border, government spending, Common Core. And I think that we should focus on bringing more things back to the states, not just education. Jenny, I have to run, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jenny Beth Martin from the Tea Party Patriots, the president and co-founder. We'll be right back with Aaron Kall from the University of Michigan talking about presidential inaugural addresses.
Taking a closer look at the stories that affect you most with a big dose of common sense.
When I was young, it seemed that life was so wonderful. A miracle. Oh, it was beautiful, magical. And all the birds in the
Man, there's just so much to do this week as we head toward the inauguration, of course. And I don't know what to expect. Donald Trump's speeches are not, they're not memorable in the way that Ronald Reagan or John Kennedy or Barack Obama even, in some of their speeches and their skills as orators. The way that they deliver a speech, the eloquence, I mean, I was sitting here talking about some of Ronald Reagan's speeches recently, and I was talking to a friend of mine talking about the fact that I don't remember Barack Obama sitting behind the desk in the Oval Office giving a speech, because I think that is always powerful. I saw George W. Bush do that, Ronald Reagan do that, John Kennedy do that, Bill Clinton do that. I don't remember Barack Obama doing that very much, but this week all the focus is on that inaugural speech. Aaron Kall with us now, Director of Debate at the University of Michigan, returning to the program. Aaron, welcome back.
Great to be here.
And despite Donald Trump not doing great in debates, once again, the debates, as we talked about previously last time you were around, not really the indicator of who's going to win the election, are they?
No, definitely not. According to Gallup, Clinton had the widest margin of the three debates, but no, that wasn't the deciding factor in the race at all, for sure.
Now, are you on campus every day down there at the University of Michigan?
I am, yes.
So, okay, tongue-in-cheek a little bit, but is there going to be a bunch of rooms set aside with Play-Doh on Friday? Or what's going on with the safe spaces?
No, it's...
Come on now. You guys deserve that after some of the behavior. Not you particular, you know what I'm saying. But, all right, let's talk about presidential inaugural speeches. Sometimes there are some things that come out of those speeches that live on forever, famously. Become quotes going down the road. I don't know that we're going to see that from Donald Trump. What do you expect, I suppose?
Yeah, no, that's certainly not the norm. This will be the 58th inaugural address of all time, and for the most part, the speeches are unmemorable. I'd say maybe 10-20% of the overall speeches end up being above average, and the key is, having some kind of iconic word or phrase that, the years later, the people still talk about. And sometimes even when writing the speech, you're unaware that's going to be the case. But something that people gravitate towards, and so that's important. You mentioned Reagan in the intro. I think that's something that certainly he's going to try to model. The ages are similar, the two of them, when entering office. Obviously, their opinions of government and regulations, the conservative nature of their cabinets, a lot of similarities in media backgrounds. And so I think that'd be a good place for him to start. Reagan's first inaugural address in 1981 is considered one of the best of all time. And so if he can get anywhere near that, that'd be great. And I think very interesting to see, will he use a teleprompter? I think that's going to be a big question. Reagan was the last president not to use a teleprompter, and he says he wants it to be a short speech, maybe 10, 12 minutes long. And if that's the case, I think there's certainly the chance where he doesn't have to use one. He can be a little bit more free-flowing with some of his other speeches.
Yeah, when he free flows, he's better, but he was more effective in those free flow conversations when he was being maybe a bit combative. I don't know that combative is the words, will be the words that come out of his mouth on Friday. And so I don't know what to expect. The fact of the matter is, a lot of people, as you well know, Aaron, have underestimated Donald Trump time and again. And if you underestimate him on this speech, maybe that's a mistake as well.
Definitely. No, definitely. I mean, it was obviously an unconventional race last time, and no one, had a good sense of what was going to happen. I've got some op-eds coming out this week of the speech, and that's one of my major points is to, that yes, he can thrive on low expectations and being underestimated. The transition started strongly. He had a little honeymoon and a period where he got a bump up to about the 50% approval rating after the election. But after that, things, haven't been going as well with, some controversies. And now, depending on the poll, he's down to somewhere between 37 and 44% approval rating. So,
but I think, let me ask you this, and not it's kind of from an aside, not just from a speech point of view, but because the expectations have been set so low. I mean, if he gets through a day and doesn't make a bad tweet, his approval ratings might go up a point or two. I mean, honestly, they've set the bar so low that doing nothing might increase his ratings. And if he does something good, like the North American Free Trade Agreement or the wall and the border is a success, or some business growth is a success, the only place to go is up. And I think that I think the Democrats have put themselves in a corner here by continuing to beat him into lower and lower expectations. He's incapable, he's not credible, he's not legitimate, and so on and so forth. Then I think Donald Trump has the ability to, even with mild or medium victories, can turn those into, huge, or as I should say, huge victories, right or wrong.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, sometimes I think, that's intentional. Some of the things that he says on Twitter, he has a different tone when talking in public. Sometimes, he'll start out with outrageous demands, but really that's just a negotiating position. And so,
be able to reach a compromise. And so definitely, I think one thing definitely to pay attention to for the speech on Friday is that Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton have RSVP'd, so they're going to be in attendance. Obviously, President Obama is the outgoing president. What are his comments toward them going to be? About Obama's previous 8 years in office, the hard-fought race with Clinton and her exit from the stage after that. I thought George W. Bush in 2001 was excellent about, after a very hard-fought campaign against Gore, paying tribute to him. So anything there that he can do, being magnanimous and gracious, I think would go a long way towards helping some of the people that may necessarily not have voted for him, but certainly want him to succeed and help the economy, which would be in their interest.
Thank you so much, Aaron. I think those are great comments and great insight. We're out of time for today, but if it's something spectacular or something interesting said, of course, we'll have you back, as we do from time to time. I appreciate it, Aaron Kall, as always.
Anytime. Director
of the debate program at the University of Michigan, Aaron Kall, here on the program. Not playing with Play-Doh, I guess.
This is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it all.
Stop. Yeah, stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me, gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy.
Yeah, it's not cynical. It's common sense.
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
Well, be careful out there, boys and girls, because it is slick in a lot of places, especially on those bridges and so forth. It is just treacherous because of the freezing rain, and that's extending over large portions of the state right now. Warmer temperatures and rain creating icing conditions. Some places could see damaging ice as it builds up on the trees and so forth, causing limbs to come down, could put some power out in different places. But I'm most concerned about you driving in the car right now. Focus on what you're doing. Pay attention because it's very, very important. All right. Talking about what's coming up this week, obviously it's a historic week in America. Donald Trump, the man that so many pundits said could not win. They laughed, said he could not win. It couldn't happen. No way. It never happened. He can't win. He wouldn't even get the nomination. He's not a serious candidate. He's this, he's that. He's a lot of things. What he is, he's the 45th president of the United States here in less than 4 days. That's what he is. Meanwhile, the left continues to attack. Some 40 Democratic lawmakers say they won't attend the inauguration. I think that's shameful. If you don't respect Donald Trump, okay, I can say I understand that you have differences of political opinion. I can say I understand that. What I cannot respect is the lack of respect for the office of the President of the United States. Now, John Lewis, one of the guys that's leading this boycott, the congressman from Georgia, a former, civil rights activist, or maybe current civil rights activist, I suppose, if you ask him, says that he is not a legitimate president. He doesn't believe that Donald Trump is a legitimate president, so he's going to boycott Donald Trump. And apparently this is big news, except that, John Lewis also boycotted George W. Bush's inauguration. Here's what we're going to do with this bit of news from John Lewis. It's now been filed. Perfect. All right, let's move on to something more important. Like Sean Spicer, the White House press secretary, he was a guest on, believe it or not, MSNBC, and he was discussing the options that the president-elect has when it comes to replacing Obamacare, which has consumed a tremendous amount of the conversation, even this morning talking a lot about Obamacare. And I wanted you to hear what Sean Spicer had to say. He is the incoming press secretary for Donald Trump. Sean Spicer on MSNBC. It's clip 7. Go.
So one of the things that he's looking at is the business side of this. How can you work with the drug companies to bring some of the costs down through greater competition on the pharmaceutical side? But then he's also looking at the market access piece of this in terms of the market competition.
I guess we were on the wrong spot there for a moment. So it is. All right, well, there's just a little bit of a problem there. So let's go on to clip 8 because former U.S. Senator Scott Brown was a guest on Fox News also talking about Obamacare and doing the fix. And he said Democrats never had any intention whatsoever of fixing Obamacare. Here's Senator Scott Brown. Go.
They have an amazing opportunity to actually get things done because when I first got there, the Republicans and some Democrats brought up over, I think, almost 400 amendments. They could have fixed it. They had every opportunity. So when they say, "Oh, we want to fix it,"
why didn't they?
It's all lip service because if they passed one amendment, they could have actually destroyed the whole thing. So they chose not to do anything. And Harry Reid and Nancy Pelosi weren't able to merge their two plans, and that's why you have Obamacare as it stands. And it was a result of obviously the election and taking away the supermajority. And we had many opportunities. We spent a month on amendments, and they didn't pass one. So I find it so hypocritical. Megan, your dad will tell you this, that they now want to allegedly, fix it. Let's cut the crap, okay? They don't want to fix it. They want to make a statement, and let's put the American people first on these things.
Can you say cut the crap? Well, Scott Brown can. He's been a guest on this program, former U.S. Senator from Massachusetts. You can still hear that accent in his voice for sure. Expect to have him back on the program soon, as a matter of fact. Looking forward to that. Obamacare is going to be one of the things that is in focus early. Now, if you didn't see it, Rand Paul, a day or two ago, said that there is a plan ready to go. Rand Paul says they have a plan prepared and in waiting, and I'm like, okay, that's going to be kind of a surprise to me. We'll see what happens. Of course, Rand Paul and Donald Trump famously did not get along on the campaign trail. Of course, Donald Trump really didn't get along with any of the other candidates particularly well on the campaign trail, come to think of it. Rand Paul, one of those, but it would be monumental, in my opinion, if there was a plan ready to go, because we've talked about it in this program that I don't think the Republicans have their act together quite yet on Obamacare as far as the repeal and replace plan goes. And if they don't, then they're going to look foolish because they've been talking and harping and banging on this drum about repeal and replace with what? Donald Trump now talking about a plan that he says will cover all Americans. It says that all Americans should have health insurance. Now, that's something that most Americans agree with, whether it's constitutional or not. Most Americans agree with the idea that people should be protected against catastrophic illness and bankruptcy. And it's something that's been talked about a lot, and we'll continue to follow this as it happens. I think that, obviously, Obamacare will be one of the first things that the president does on Friday. There'll be a whole host of things. I think that he's going to be overturning executive actions, a stack of them. Is going to be rejected on Friday. All right, and as far as celebrities go to the inauguration, well, there won't be that many because they keep coming and saying, well, we just can't. But Donald Trump's chairman of the Presidential Inauguration Committee, Tom Barrack, says he's not bothered by it. And if you don't want to attend the inauguration, that's okay. He said now it's kind of interesting, though, that some celebrities are actually asking for tickets. Tom Barrack talked about that here yesterday. Here it is, clip 9. Go.
What a country, right? That you've got an inauguration, which is this only peaceful transition of partisan power where this happens. And you can have a TV show, which was hilarious, by the way, that criticizes the process of that inauguration. Is a beautiful tribute to the country. But yeah, it's not about that. I mean, we had the opportunity to have plenty of A-list celebrities, which what the issue was. And the directive from the president-elect was simple. Make it great, make it for the people. And we have 3 of the greatest celebrities in the world here already. We have President Obama, #1 celebrity in the world as it exists today. We have this, Washington, D.C., which is a stage that is incomparable anywhere in the world. And we have the president-elect, Donald Trump, who certainly on everybody's list is one of the top celebrities in the world. So I respect the celebrities. They're all friends of mine. I just tell everybody, get over it, get on side. Let's give this man a chance. He's now the president for all of us. And I have to tell you, in the last week, I've gotten hundreds of calls from lots of my friends who are saying, can I get tickets? And the bottom line is they can't. We're sold out of it.
So now you're saying the celebrities are now they want in?
Yes.
Yeah, there you go. Now some of the celebrities want in because they want to be there. Who knows? Here's something else. And I was just talking about this with a friend of mine yesterday about Donald Trump's tax returns. I don't think anybody cares. And yet here's a brand new ABC News Washington Post poll saying that 74% of Americans want to see Trump's tax returns. I don't believe that's accurate. I don't think that many people really care. They care about moving this country forward, and what he's got on his tax returns at this point means little or nothing. It's the Steve Gruber Show. We'll be right back.
Getting your day started with news from around the state and around the world. Common Sense Radio. This is the Steve Gruber Show.
But it must have been the wrong time. I'd have said the right thing, but it must have used the wrong line.
All right. Well, you know, the thought police are out enforcing. I wonder if George Orwell were alive today, if he'd go, gosh, it's worse than I expected. Or if he'd say, that's about what I expected. You know, when it comes to the thought police, the newspeak, up is down, black is white, in is out, right is wrong, war is peace, and so on and so forth. You know, so many people offended by things now. And I think that the First Amendment in this country is under fire every day. And when I say that, some people, they look at me like I have three heads. But it's like, if you don't see it, I think you're missing something important. My next guest here to discuss it a little bit more in detail, Dr. Nick Oberheiden. Doctor, welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Now, your firm in Dallas-Fort Worth, you're an attorney specializing in federal cases. Should the government be able to veto a rock band's name when it comes to trademark protection and so forth? Now, we heard this come up when the government said that they would not protect the Washington Redskins from trademark infringement because, well, it's offensive to some people. Well, there's this band called the Slants. They've been around for actually quite a long time. They're an Asian rock band, kind of a tongue-in-cheek name. But they can't register their band's name because it's considered offensive to Asians. I mean, at what point do we draw the line, sir?
Well, we will see how the Supreme Court decides. And indeed, this is an interesting case. This is a young musician, Asian American, who has been battling the federal government since 2011. And all Simon Tam wants is to have his band name, The Slants, be protected as a trademark. So what he did is he applied. It was denied. He appealed. It was denied. He went to court. It was denied. And here we are, Simon Tam with his band ending up at the U.S. Supreme Court, who is tasked to decide whether or not the expression "the slants" is disparaging and offensive, keeping in mind, just like as you pointed out, he is Asian American, and he is not offended, nor are the band members. And the question really is the First Amendment here being ridiculed by saying this is not protected speech? You know, we have some trademarks in existence that I can't even pronounce on air and on the radio. And, you know, if they are not offensive, how is the slants offensive? So this is important for the U.S. Supreme Court, even though there are only 8 justices right now, to step in and to come up with a decision that keeps in mind and considers cases like the Westboro Baptist Church case. You know, if the court there in this case decided that disparaged and hateful speech for, verbal attacks at the graveyards of fallen soldiers is covered and protected by the First Amendment, I'm having a hard time imagining how the slants is not.
Well, here's the thing that I find disconcerting about this. First of all, it's a free speech issue to me, and it's very simple and very clear in the First Amendment of the Bill of Rights. I mean, and how far would you go? Do you ban the Indians, the Braves, the Chiefs because they're offensive to Native Americans? Maybe the term Vikings is offensive to Norwegians, or Buccaneers offensive to people whose ancestors were pirates. I mean, at what point it just becomes a point of absurdity, which is why America, in my opinion, Doctor, was based on free speech and the notion of Voltaire that even though I may not agree with a single word you say, I will defend to the death your right to say it, at least attributed to Voltaire by some, and some say it's anonymous. But you get my point, Doctor. At what point, and who gets to decide what's offensive and what's not?
Well, importantly, the trademark office should not be the what you call the thought police or policing what is convenient and what is likable. You pointed out we as a nation have chosen that we allow people to say what they want. And the First Amendment, sometimes we disagree, we are opposed, and some things are provocative and offensive. But, the First Amendment is not about your or my taste. It's about the freedom to say what you and I want to say within certain small parameters. And this is really a case where I would be shocked. It would be a constitutional shock, in my opinion, if the U.S. Supreme Court declares this to be outside First Amendment protection.
So that's where I'm confused, Doctor. You have to clarify that for me. I might be a little obtuse today, but how could trademark protection be outside of First Amendment protection? Now, I know that common words, the sky, for example, you can't trademark the sky, but you can trademark different things, and the slant certainly would be a trademark that would be available. But how is it outside of First Amendment protection?
Well, essentially, in order for the trademark to be protected and granted, it must satisfy a federal statute, the Lanham Act, and that statute essentially says we will not grant you a trademark if the trademark suggestion is disparaging and offensive. And the question really among, a convoluted other legal questions is this statement, this section of this federal statute on its face unconstitutional? Is it constitutional to disallow trademarks because they are disparaging to some? And that's really the question for copyright and trademark purposes that the U.S. Supreme Court has to decide.
And then the question is how many people are offended? Is it one person? Is it a million people? That's where, you get into a sticky wicket. It's just a mess, Doctor. But I'm going to keep a close eye on this case. And I want you to come back once it winds its way through the Supreme Court, because I think it's fascinating, and I appreciate you bringing it to our attention and talking more about it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Dr. Nick Oberheiden here from Dallas-Fort Worth, an attorney specializing in federal cases like this. By the way, I came up with one more team name that I think is highly offensive. It's the Lions, and I believe the Lions are insulting to all African game animals because of the hapless and helpless performance on the football field for 53 years. I mean, what African animal isn't offended by the Lions and their dismal performances over 53 years? I find that highly offensive, should not be trademarked. 25 after on the Steve Gruber Show.
Covering Michigan and the world from his bunker below the bridge. Here is Steve Gruber.
All right, welcome back to it. It's Tuesday, just 2.5 days, or was it 3.5, whatever it's been. Donald Trump becomes president at the end of the week, that's what I know. My next guest, one of my favorites, who not a Trump supporter in the beginning, but certainly not a Hillary supporter. I think I can say that safely. I don't think I've talked to her since the election was over. So, Tezlyn Figaro, welcome back to the program.
Oh, thanks for having me, Steve. I was just thinking I have to come through to Michigan. Hang out with you in the bunker below the bridge and do some live radio with you.
You got it, and I'm glad to have you here. You know, a couple of days ago I did this. I suspect you might be one of the people that does this, but I went back and on YouTube now you can find the best meltdowns of election night, and they've got them strung together. And I watch them, and I watch the Young Turks is just these guys are a train wreck, and they're an awful train, but it's so delicious to watch. You might enjoy some of that from time to time, just watching these people go to pieces. It's still fun, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and they're still doing it right now. It's amazing to be just a couple of days before election. I was listening to Joe Scarborough talk this morning about the polls, and it just reminded me of Michael Cohen when he said, "What polls?" The media has certainly been shown that the polls are not as reliable as they seem to think, and they're still pushing that narrative, not understanding that Donald Trump is going to continue to be the Donald Trump that got him elected, and he just refuses to let mainstream media take his narrative and own it, and I love it. I just respect that so much.
Well, I was just watching, and I just saw a poll come out a little bit ago from the Washington Post that says 74% of Americans still want to see Donald Trump's tax returns, and I'm like, no, they don't. They don't even care. They elected the guy. They're ready to do something different. They want to see the polls. And John Lewis is going to not attend the inauguration. And I'm like, and so what? He didn't attend George W. Bush's inauguration either. Is that supposed to be important to me? I mean, I don't get it. The narrative from the media gets worse and worse, and it's not helping them. It's not working for them, is it?
Well, it really backfired yesterday when Martin Luther King III, met with Donald Trump on Martin Luther King Day, and I've been constantly tweeting saying, I'm looking for the backlash. They attacked Steve Harvey, who met with him on last week, called him everything but a child of God. Obviously the John Lewis meltdown has been going on for 3 or 4 days straight, because John Lewis marched with Martin Luther King. But what about Martin Luther King's son, who actually met with Trump? And you don't see a lot of that in mainstream media. Fox, which, I'm a contributor at Fox, they've been the only one that has been pushing that narrative. And the left has pretty much just ignored it because it goes against everything that they say about him being a racist, everything they say about him not reaching out to the black community. And it's really unfair because Pastor Darrell Scott, Reverend James Davis, has worked tirelessly over the election to try to get more African Americans involved, but they just refuse to do it mainly because of their constituents. They don't mind.
Let me ask you something. This is important because you hit on something very important here. First of all, Martin Luther King Jr. III said they had a very constructive meeting, was positive. He's going to give Donald Trump a chance, but he also said or alluded to that he's going to hold Donald Trump accountable for what he does as president, as he should, as all Americans should hold him accountable for what he does. But as I look at this, isn't Donald Trump reaching out to the African-American community and other communities as well, but the African-American community in a more effective way than Barack Obama did? I mean, serious question.
No question. I mean, when you talk about, it's not that he has not been trying. He has. Personal friends of mine, Pastor Scott, Reverend Davis, has worked tirelessly, Omarosa as well, to try to get people around the table to have the conversations. They've refused to. They've been shunned. There were over 100 pastors that had planned to meet with Trump when he was running for office, and Pastor Jamal Brian called did a huge periscope denouncing those pastors and telling those ministers not to support, tell their congregations not to support those ministers. So he has done outreach, Steve, but nobody's going to beg anybody, and I don't blame him. The white, black, whoever. One thing Trump is certainly not a politician. He's not going to beg a Republican just as well as he's not going to beg a black person or a Spanish person. You're either with him or you're not, you're not. And it's just that simple and plain, and that's not racist.
What I
That's
see,
just saying I'm not going to run around and kiss tail if you don't want to be on the train. You're either on or off or you're getting left, period.
on the line, Tezlyn Figaro, but by the way, former National Justice Director for Bernie Sanders, founder of Tezlyn Figaro Communications. You were not a Donald Trump supporter to begin with, but it sure sounds like you've come this way. Now, what I get from Donald Trump, the impression I get, he doesn't care if you're black or white. He doesn't care if you're a man or woman. He cares if you're the best person to get a task completed and completed well. To me, he's looking for the best people to do the best job possible. That's what I see.
Mm-hmm. And I agree. In the private sector, which I'm a supporter of, and people ask me, do I support this person, that person? I didn't support Bernie Sanders, the man, but I supported his ideology about anti-establishment. I didn't support him as socialist views. I don't support Trump as a person, but I support his support of the private sector and getting people back to work. So I try to be really careful with saying I'm a party affiliated or person affiliated. I am independent, and there are views that I support with Trump, just like there's views I'm sure I'll disagree with him on as well.
No, so you're making the point that some of the more scathing or ridiculous or offensive things that he said, you certainly don't embrace those things, but you embrace the idea of free markets and free people and economic freedom, which has created more liberty on this planet than anything else. Economic freedom, the choice to do what you please, to create your own wealth and your own create your own business, your own kingdom, your own path, if you will. That's what you support.
Absolutely. I'm a job creator, Steve. In Orlando, I had 300 employees. It was a staffing firm, and I had to shut down due to health care reform. And now this is the first time that I've had a job that I cannot afford health care through my employer. It's just that expensive. So I am with replacing health care reform, not necessarily repealing, because it has saved a lot of people who don't work and have insurance. But for those of us who do work, we are being penalized with high deductibles and also high premiums.
I think that I think the majority of Americans do, whether it's constitutional or not. I think the majority of Americans in 2017 believe there should be a baseline of coverage for all Americans, regardless of your income, some sort of a safety net, not a hammock, but a safety net to make sure that people can see a doctor if they need to. And I think that people would like to figure out a way that if you do get terribly sick, you get cancer, for example, that you don't bankrupt yourself and end up, on the street homeless because of illness. I think that people agree with those things, but we don't agree with giving everything to everybody all the time. There should be a base level of support and protection, not necessarily constitutional. I'm sure I'll get people that push back against this, but I think that is what the majority of Americans think, and I think they believe that since Teddy Roosevelt first suggested the idea more than a century ago. What do you think?
Absolutely, and they also believe that people who work should not be penalized. And I think people get that conversation confused with race or class, but it's not that. It's just the simple fact that more hardworking Americans in the middle class may lean towards one ethnic group or the other, and I think that conversation gets washed out. And for African Americans who are working, who are in the system, simply don't want to speak against it because it seems as if we're going against our poorer brothers and sisters and being against them, and that's just not the case. For me and my child, one child, I would have to spend over $400+ a month for insurance through an employer, and then still pay a $5,000 deductible without paying it with nothing, with the insurance company paying nothing. Well, I don't go to the doctor enough to have that type of deductible, so I just have zero insurance because I can't qualify for Obamacare because I make too much money. So it's not fair to me have to pay out of pocket every single time unless I had some, recurrent illness that required me to go to the doctor a lot. And so a lot of us are being screwed, and it's a lot of black people, Steve, that believe in this, but just simply won't do it because they'll get badged from left to right. I mean, they killed Steve Harvey this week. Calling him every
and Steve Harvey's he's a good guy. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. We're out of time there, Tez, but everything that I read about the guy, I find him, entertaining to watch, but everything I read about, he's a good guy. He didn't deserve any of that. Tez, I've got to run, but you're great. Want to have you on whenever you're available. Love you. Tezlyn Figaro, thank you.
Love you too. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you so much. Tezlyn Figaro here on the Steve Gruber Show. We'll be right back.
Keeping you in touch with Michigan and the world.
All right, it's 45 after. Now, as you guys know, I'm heading off to D.C. here for the inauguration. We'll do a couple of days broadcasting from the Kirby Center, from the Hillsdale College radio facilities there. Security's going to be tight, but we hope to have some of those folks in studio. We're just not sure what the logistics are going to be or how difficult that's going to be. But either way, we're going to continue to be down there. Now, if you're looking for something else to do to mark the occasion of the inauguration of the 45th president, I've got something for you. It's called Battle Cry, and it's going to be put on in part by Meshawn Maddock with the Michigan Conservative Coalition. She was an RNC convention delegate and one of two votes from Michigan on the RNC platform committee. She's also running against Scott Hagerstrom for the chairman of the Michigan Republican Party. She joins me now. Meshawn, welcome to the program.
Hey, how are you? Thanks for having me on.
You've got a lot going on, it seems.
Yeah, right now it does seem that way, but, that's the nature of politics. Ever since Trump came in, it's just been nonstop.
Work, work, work. I think that's going to be the hallmark of his administration. Work, work, and then when you're done with that, do some more work. And that's okay. America needs a stronger work ethic, in my estimation. So tell me about this Battle Cry event that's going on simultaneously with the inauguration. Kind of a get-together, a celebration, is it not?
It is. This is our second event. We were last year also in January, and so this year, really the reason that we chose this weekend was, first of all, because it's going to be the inauguration, and we knew a lot of people that can't get to Washington, D.C. We're going to want to celebrate, and we wanted to join them. We worked really hard to get President Trump elected, and so we picked the 20th and the 21st. And the other reason is that is exactly 1 week before county conventions all across the state of Michigan. And a lot of what we do is organize delegates on how to be prepared for convention.
Okay, so then before we get off the Battle Cry event, it's on the 20th and 21st, Friday and Saturday. Where's it being held?
The Soaring Eagle Resort in Mount Pleasant.
Okay, so centrally located for pretty much anybody in Michigan. Anybody listening to this radio program from Marquette to Monroe and all points in between, you can get to Soaring Eagle. Everybody's heard of it, of course. Yeah. The 20th and 21st. What kind of an event is it? I know that I've seen some flyers. You've got some really good speakers and some events going on. Just tell the folks what's happening during this two-day event.
Right. Well, Friday night really is a celebration. It's all about Trump, all about the inauguration. We're going to we have on the live screen. We will have the actual when he's been inaugurated. So we'll have video clips of what happened throughout the day in the parade, so people will be able to tune in and look at that. But our event starts at 7 p.m. We've got heavy appetizers, a cash bar, a live band, dancing, and it's really just going to be a great time. Not to scare people off, you don't have to wear a formal ball gown. I mean, you can if you want, but we're We're calling it the black and white ball, and pretty much anything that you have that's black or white you can wear.
All right, and that sounds like a pretty good event overall. Meanwhile, like I said, you've got a lot going on. You're running for the chair of the RNC here, the Republican chair for Michigan. What do you make of that? How did you get into that race?
I'm actually running with Scott Hagerstrom.
Okay.
So Scott is running as chair of the Michigan Republican Party. He led Michigan as Trump's campaign chair.
I knew that. I mean, I know Scott. I got to know him through this process, so I knew that.
Great.
So
Okay,
I guess I misunderstood. I thought you were running against him. My mistake.
No,
You're
oh
running
my gosh,
with him.
I worked hard with him. So I'm running. He asked me to join him on the ticket as his co-chair. So we're running together, and we're really excited. We're really excited about continuing the Trump message that we worked so hard for in Michigan the last year, and continuing that with our state party.
Well, obviously, with Romney McDaniel being elevated to the national chair position, that's obviously, well, that's quite a feather in the cap for Michigan as well, is it not?
It is, and we worked really hard with the state party, and we feel like we know the changes that could be made to make it better, and really it's about the grassroots driving the agenda of the new Michigan Republican Party. We want to continue the message that Trump had, which means that special interests and the era of elitists that have controlled Michigan politics through cash and cronyism is over. You know, we saw that his message is vital, and it's no longer just money without a powerful message that is the winning solution.
Well, there need to be some changes, that's for sure. So speaking of that, when you look at the first 100 days, a lot of talk about that. We've talked about Obamacare, but what else? We've talked about it all morning is what I mean. What else on the list of things when you look at things that could, if you will, make America great again? What are the things that you're looking for from a President Trump right out of the gate? The first few things you're looking for that you would think would benefit the state of Michigan?
Well, first of all, wow, Trump has already continued his winning message before he's even elected. I mean, just look at what he's done to Michigan, bringing jobs back already. And I think we're going to see a lot of Trump's message, which, you know, people laughed at, all of the haters out there, but I think we're going to win so much that we're going to get tired of winning. And I don't even think I think the inauguration is just a small little stepping stone. You know, he's going to enjoy himself that night, but he's already hard at work for us.
Yeah, actually, I'll tell you this, Meshawn. I think that I don't think you and I are going to get tired of winning. I think we're going to enjoy it. But I think the Democrats who continue to try to drive Trump, the expectations lower and lower, which they've done, they keep driving it lower and lower. So small victories will be big victories because they've made the bar so low. I think the Democrats will get sick and tired of hearing about Trump winning. That's what I think is going to happen. They're going to get sick and tired of hearing about it.
I can't imagine, because he is going to make America great again for everybody. His message is a message of unity. I truly believe that in my heart. And I think that people are just going to be drawn to him, and that includes Democrats. So I am really hopeful that true unity, and I hate to use that word, but because it's tossed around so much, but I really feel like people on the other side won't be able to help but see that a prosperous America is going to be good for them and their children, and that's going to draw them to him.
No question. All right, so Battle Cry 2017 to be held at Soaring Eagle. Is there a place people can go real quickly to find some more information?
It's real easy. Go to battlecrymichigan.com and sign up. It's very inexpensive. $69 gets you both days. Even if you just came Friday night, you're going to be there with over 200 people in Michigan supporting Donald Trump's inauguration and have a great time with great people just like you. And we welcome everyone. This is an inauguration celebration. So, yeah, easy. Go to battlecrymichigan.com.
Meshawn, thank you so much for joining me. It's been a great conversation. Enjoyed having you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Meshawn Maddock here on the program. battlecrymichigan.com for more. Some final thoughts after this. All right, I need to share something with you right now that is absolutely shocking. This comes from an elementary school teacher in my former district. I want to turn that music down. I want you to listen to this. Dear parents, because I am concerned about my students and your children being exposed to language and behavior that is not in concert with the most conservative social and family values. I have decided to show the inauguration of Donald Trump this Friday, but not Mr. Trump's inauguration speech, because every peaceful transition of power is a historic moment. I put into the request to the Trump team to preview the speech. Oh, yeah, because an elementary school teacher should get a preview of the speech. Are you joking? But I've not heard back from them. No kidding. I showed the speeches of Presidents Obama and Bush in 2009 and 2005, respectively, but I'm anxious about showing Mr. Trump's inaugural address, given his past inflammatory and degrading comments about minorities, women, and the disabled. I'm also uneasy about Mr. Trump's casual use of profanity, so I sought an assurance that as their teacher, I would not be exposing children to language that would not appear as rated G or PG. I do not know if Mr. Trump's speech is something that would be provided to the press or concerned citizens beforehand, but these plans may change if I hear back from them. This is from a school teacher in a local district who I'll be calling today directly. This is absurd. Because of inflammatory and degrading comments about minorities, women, and the disabled, half of America doesn't agree with you. And how dare you, sir, decide to try to slant your coverage, to spin your coverage of your personal views, obviously not a Trump supporter, so you don't like the man that was elected, so you're going to tell school children, in effect, that it's not appropriate to watch this guy because you think he might say something inflammatory, which, of course, he won't. This is foolish behavior from a school teacher, and I'm guessing there's a lot more of it, and I'll be looking to hear from you over the next couple of days. Send me all you've got. Go to the Steve Gruber Show Facebook page. Send me, post, and put it up there. Send me all you've got from teachers saying they're afraid of what Donald Trump might say. He might offend someone. Yeah, you know, I spent my childhood being offended by things my father said until later in life when I realized I'm really thankful he said those things to me. He set me on the straight and narrow to get my head, clear. My mother as well. We'll get to the bottom of this one, and trust me. And until then, keep the faith. I'm Steve Gruber. We'll talk tomorrow.